Hi all, welcome to my channel. In this channel, we make tutorials on how to use basic services or make basic configurations on cloud environments, Azure, AWS, and all. So it's a growing channel, so you help us if you like the content that we are dishing out. You help us to keep making this content by subscribing to the channel and liking the video. So in this tutorial, I'm going to teach us how to create a storage account and use a command line tool called Azcopy to copy files from the local machine to your Azure storage account or a container in your storage account. So to get started, the first thing to do when you're working with storage accounts or when you're working with Azure Storage is to create a storage account. So I have this storage account already created, but we're going to start from afresh. So from here we can click on storage accounts or search for storage accounts here, or come back to this panel and look for storage accounts. So any of the ways that you choose from here, create storage account. Right, so we're going to create a new storage account and not use the previous one that I already had in this before making this tutorial. So it's going to ask us for a resource group. So if you've been following my tutorials, you must have known what a resource group is by now, but if this is your first video, do not worry. So in Azure has a kind of what we call file system in Linux, that is one file above the other, right? So it's the same thing with Azure. So this is done to help you keep things in sync and simple. So the resource group is like a container that houses a resource or resources that you want to keep together. So from the resource group, you can create storage accounts, and when you create storage accounts, start talking about creating containers before uploading your blob into the storage account. So we're going to check by it's taking the D resource group by default. I created initially a resource group and named it D. But if this is your first time hearing about resource group, or this is your first time watching my tutorial, so we'll do you the service of creating a new resource group. So we can give it SD account R resource group GRP, right? So it doesn't really matter, whatever name you choose to give it is fine. So we click on this to create a new resource group, and we give our storage account a name. So this name has to be unique across all Azure users. So whether you're in Nigeria, you're in Ghana, you're in South Africa, you're in America, or your company, anybody that has an Azure account, the storage account name has to be unique. So it means that no two Azure customers can have the same storage account. So if this is where the issue is, because you have to be creative with your naming, right? Most of the name you'd want to choose, someone might have chosen it. So we can maybe do ST, that is for storage, ACC for accounts, and do okay, this is already taken, and do storage account toots for tutorial. Okay, I think this is free, so we can just complete the tutorial. I pray this is free as well. So this is storage account tutorial. That is the name of the storage account, and the region that is closest to me is South Africa. I'm in Africa. So primary service. So what is the basic thing you want to do with your storage account? So by default, I want Azure to upload blobs to my Azure blob storage. So take on blob storage, and the primary workload, so it's for backup and archive. So this is what we want to do. We do not have a workload we are building, so we won't be needing something that is so big, so we just leave it at backup and archive. And then performance, so we're leaving it as standard performance because it's a little storage account, so it falls by default under general purpose v2 account. So for redundancy, so redundancy is how do we want Azure to copy our data or help us safe keep our data in case of losses or rack damage or anything that happens in an Azure data center. So it takes redundant storage by default, but we're going to choose locally redundant storage. So this means that when Azure comes into a data center, it should be able to keep different copies of our files in different racks within the data center. So this is by far the cheapest redundancy option, right? So when we do this, we just go ahead to hit on create and wait for the validation process to complete. So the process has been completed. We'll go ahead to click on create so that it can get started with creating the storage account. So we'll wait for it to get done deploying. The storage account has successfully gotten created. So we would proceed to having an overview of it. So when you want to use Azure Blob Storage or any Azure storage service, it will require you to create a container. A container is like a folder. So let's take for instance this storage accounts in a company, a big company where they have different departments, and these departments they have their own file system and um, items or objects that needs to be stored using the Azure Blob Storage. So that kind of big organization can have, they can have admin departments, they can have logistics, they can have finance. So if they are using Azure, for instance, and they're using one subscription and they need to upload stuff to Azure Storage or Azure Blob. So you can have different storage accounts, maybe different a storage account for finance. So when you look at it, you know that anything that has to do with the finance department, you would get it in this storage account that belongs to finance. You can have another storage account for admin, for logistics and all. So when you come into that storage account that belongs to finance, you can now have different containers. These are containers are like folders. So the way they would want to maybe arrange or put in blob according to what it does. So they can have a container for images, can have a container for audios, they can have container for text file, documents and all. So that is pretty much what a container in a storage account does, or what it is. So here we can choose to upload. The conventional way of using Azure Blob Storage is to just click on upload here and you get to create a container from this side if you do not have any existing container. So we just created this storage account, there's no existing container. Or you can come to this side on this sidebar and then click on data storage and it shows you containers. So you can either choose to create your container from here. So we click on container and you can create your container, maybe file container. So when you do this, you click on create and it goes ahead to create a container. So while the container is creating, so let's do a Google search for the how to download the Azcopy. It is a command line tool. So we'll do download Azcopy. Okay, so from here we can go through. Alright, so I'm using a 64-bit x86-bit system architecture. So what I would do is to click this so it will get to download into my local machine. So for this demo, we're going to be using the Azure Cloud Shell, which is this. So I'm opening a new page or a new tab for it. So here we're not going to use my local machine this time around. We're going to use the Azure Cloud Shell. So it has the same, it's just like any terminal anywhere, right? So it's fully loaded, and because it belongs to Azure, right? So the Azure CLI is installed here in this terminal, in this Cloud Shell terminal by default. So if you're going to use Azcopy from your local machine and you do not have the Azure CLI already installed, you won't be able to use Azcopy. You will have to install the Azure CLI. So it's just pretty much easier to install or use the Azure CLI from here. Azcopy has been fully installed. So what we want to do is that it got installed or downloaded from our local machine. So I want to show us something. So if you want to download or upload files into this Cloud Shell, if you need files from your local machine that you need to upload into the Cloud Shell, you can use Manage Files, click on Upload, then we'll go to my Downloads folder and click on, this is the tar file that we downloaded. So when we click on it, it's uploads. So I think SCP, secure copy, could also work when you want to upload the file or copy the file from your local machine to the Cloud Shell, right? But we'd use this. So when we do ls, so you see that this file that we downloaded from the internet, we've been able to put it here. To untar a file, we just click on CA, that is the command that the file was compressed with, which is this tar file, right? So we'll now put this hyphen flag and then write xzvf and then put in the name of the file. So it has been able to uncompress this file. So if we do ls once again, we are seeing the untarred version of this file. So we can choose to keep things simple by deleting this out, but it doesn't really matter. So we're going to go into this directory. So this is where the executable, that is the actual az command executable is. So we'll have to go into it. So we'll do cd and paste the name of the directory, and we are inside there. So if we do ls, you would see we have notice.txt and azcopy. So this azcopy is an executable. This is the actual tool that does the work. So to start with azcopy, we need to authenticate. We need to be able to log in to Azure. So not like we're going into the Azure portal, no, we are trying to authenticate. It's going to give us a code, and then we'll be able to use a user that is registered within this Azure account to be able to authenticate with the user, either the creator, the admin user, or any other user that was created from this Azure account. The command for azcopy is azcopy, then click on login. It's going to give us a URL address. So choose this URL address. So I have a user that is not this user that I have created. So I'm going to open a tab for that user and paste it here. So the user has authenticated from this particular Chrome account. So that is why I'm using the Chrome account for the user. So we'll do device login here, and it's asking us for a code. So we'll come to this place and get the code, right? So Azure is seeing that user that belongs to, or that user that I said had already been authenticated in that other browser. So it's taking that it is that user who wants to perform this action, right? So it doesn't matter where. So what we'll do is that we'll go back and put in the code, The next thing it's going to ask us to do is to choose the user that we want. So this is the user, right? So it's going to give us, ask us, are you sure are you trying to sign into Azure Storage Accounts? Yes. So we'll continue, and it's saying that we've signed in to Azure Storage Accounts application on my device. So what we'll do is when we go back, you'd see that we have login succeeded here. So if this is not the case, you won't be able to um login. So if you have any issues with your login, you'd have to fix it, because otherwise nothing is gonna work. So since we've been able to log in, right, so what do we need to upload? So if we go back to our storage account container, there is nothing, absolutely nothing here. So what do we need? We need to upload files, right? So since there is no file here, we can decide to maybe upload files from our local machine onto this Azure Cloud Shell. But we can just create sample files like different text files and upload them there. So anything you upload into a blob storage account is a blob. It doesn't matter whether they are videos, images, files like random text files, right? So let's use the touch command to create a file. So let's do blob file, right? So this is the name of a file. We're not going to use any extension, so this is the only file that we have already created. So if you do ls once again, you see that we have a file with the name blob file. We can decide to also create a directory using mkdir. So blob dir. If we try to get into this directory, so we'll have to do cd blob dir. So we are already in the directory, so we can create another file, right? Blob dir. So do ls, we have a file inside that directory that we created. So we'll go up a bit back into the Azcopy directory. So now we would need to upload this file into this container. So how do you do this? So you need the URL of this container and the storage account name. So simply, how do you find this? So we are in this container, so we'll go to this settings, click on properties. So properties is going to show us the URL. This is the name of the storage account, and this is the name of the container, so that whenever we want to use Azcopy to upload, we can just upload it. So what we'll do is just to click on copy, so it copies this, and we'll come back to the command line. So let me clear this out and do ls once again. So we use Azcopy, so Azcopy, and then the command is copy. So what do we want to copy? We want to copy blob file, and what we want to do is to paste the URL. So it's asking Azcopy to copy this blob file, which is here, into this storage account, and so into this storage account and into this file container. And now when we copy this, when it gets there, what it's going to do is that it would, if we want the file, this blob file name to continue to be blob file name, we specify it at the end, blob file. So if we want it to be another name, right, you can give it another name that is not blob file. So let's say it is blob file. Let's change the name to maybe file blob. So when it gets to Azure Storage Account or inside this container, it takes the name file blob. So once this is done, you hit enter. So there is an error, so it's saying authorization permission mismatch. So what happened here is that we created a storage account and then we used a user to log in. So that user is not an admin user. So because of that, we need to grant that user the permission to be able to get into that storage account and upload the file. So for now, the user does not have the permissions to do that. So how do we add permissions? So we'll come back to this place. So we can choose IAM. So from IAM, we're going to add a new role assignment. So click on new role assignment here. Alright, so the role we want to assign to the that user is, we'll assign it blob data owner. So which means that the user has full access to the storage blob containers data, including assigning access control, or we can also give it blob data contributor. So what the user can do is to be able to read, write and delete access. It has read, write and delete access to that Azure Storage blob container and the data inside it. So let's give it maybe blob data owner and see if we'll still get the error. So we've chosen that, and then members. So select members. Which user are we granting the permission to? We are granting it to the user that I created. So this user, the second one. So I've selected it, and we'll select the user and review and assign. So it's adding role assignment. So if we try to run that command again from here, we won't encounter any error. So use the up arrow key to try again. Has the role been assigned? Yes. So use it to try again, and this time around, okay, authentication failed. Alright, so let's try and add maybe blob data contributor again, another role assignment, and see if the error comes up again. So let's do blob data um, blob data contributor. Yeah, so select members and this. Alright, so this has been also assigned. So when we go back here, so let's try to do the command again one more time. Alright, so I think it's working. So we didn't encounter any issues, any permission issues anymore. So it says one done and one transfer completed. So if we go back into the storage account and then go back to overview, so as you can see, we uploaded the file and gave it a name, file blob, right? So this is the name of the file that we uploaded here, file blob, right? So this is about uploading. You can upload anything as much as you want to upload. So the reason why I created a directory, a directory is to show us when you want to upload a directory, is not, the command is not just exactly the same as the file that we uploaded. So because it's a directory and there is content inside that directory, so we have to use a flag called recursive. So what we'll do is to do go up again. So we'll change this name to blob.dir. Of course, you can always give it any name that you want. So when you're uploading, right, so we are uploading this directory blob.dir. Now before you put in the name of the directory, you're going to use a flag recursive, Am I sure I'm getting the spelling right? If it throws out an error, I'll have to respell it. I'm not really sure this is the right spelling. So this is to be able to copy this directory blob.dir with everything inside it into Azure. So if there is nothing in the directory, this command is going to run successfully, but it won't upload the directory. Why? Because there is no content inside it. That is why I went into the directory earlier and created a file inside that directory. So with this file inside the directory, using this recursive flag, you should be able to upload this directory with all the contents inside it. Alright, so as you can see, this completed without any error. So if we refresh this page back, alright, so you can see the blob dir. If you click on it, you see the blob dir file that we created inside that dir directory. So let's take, for instance, let's try to upload something from my local machine. So we can be able to use another file, maybe this. Okay, this is a directory. Let's upload this directory into this blob storage, and maybe the contents of the directory, everything inside it, or just one, doesn't really matter. It's just a demo, right? Let's just leave, yeah, upload the about.html, right? So we'll do this and upload this inside. This is where we uploaded it to, inside the blob dir. So we should be able to get properties of this, so that you know that, look at here, right? So it ended with the container and the blob dir directory. So at this point, we are going to be uploading straight into this blob dir directory. So what we want to do is to get the path. It's not showing the path here. Refresh, changed here. Okay, yeah, this is it. This is what I was looking for. So now we want to copy this about.html from Azure into our terminal. So if we do ls once again, you see that we do not have any file with the name about.html. So we've copied this, so we'll still use the azcopy command. azcopy, and then we use the copy command. This time around, we are not specifying the file we want to copy from our machine to Azure. So we are specifying the file we want to copy from Azure to our machine. So we'll put in the URL here. So this is the difference. Here it stopped with blob.dir. It didn't provide the name of the file, but this is the file that we want to provide, right? So where do we want to copy it to? So we may want to copy all this command out and delete it, so that we can get the path, the full path of where we would want to copy it to. So what we are trying to avoid is an error, right? So this is where we want to copy it to, right? So we'll copy this command back and copy this. This is the path, and paste it in here. So there is just one space between the source, which is this, and the destination, which is this, right? So this should work. So once this is done, hit enter. Alright, so it was able to transfer. So if we do ls once again, so you can see about.html, right? So if you also want to delete a file from your storage account container from the command line, you can also do that. So let's clear this out and do azcopy dash dash help. So this is the command, remove command. So when we do this, we just give in the name of the file at the end of it. So let me take this out again and put in the command. So let's delete that HTML file that we uploaded. Remove. Alright, so we've been able to remove one file. Then when we go back and refresh this, alright, so it says specified block does not exist, which means we've deleted this Azure HTML. So let's go back home to back into the directory. So the same thing with deleting blob directory. Blob directory is a folder. So the same way we copied, we were able to copy the blob the directory into Azure using recursive. So when we want to also remove it, we'll do the same. So let's try to remove the blob. So we're removing it with the contents. Oh, I forgot to add a second hyphen because I'm typing it in full. Alright, so he was able to successfully remove it as well. So refreshing here. Alright, so this is just basically how you can use Azcopy to copy move. So if you have more files, that is not more than one file, right? So if you want if you have files, folders, and everything inside the container, you want to remove it, what you could just do is as simple as this. So this is the name of the container, file container. So here you can put in a wildcard here. So with this, you remove everything that is inside the container. If there are hundreds of files, you remove them at one go. If there is just two files, they all files and folders, they get removed at one go. So this is just it. So when you're done, you just do Azcopy logout. It logs you out, right? So logout succeeded. So this is pretty much how to use Azcopy. There are more you can do, so you can just go ahead and try out a few other of the commands on your own. So we come to the end of the tutorial. If the tutorial was beneficial to you, if you learned anything, you can help our growing channel by subscribing to the channel and liking the video and turning on your bell icon so you get notified whenever I post new tutorial or new content or videos. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.